on any of those ways.
Excellent. And yeah, true to his word, Saab was very accessible, and you said, yeah, let's talk. Now, one of the stories I'm looking at here, and again, is a father of 4 daughters who play sports. They're all teenagers now and beyond, getting there. There's an article about a training camp that arms female broadcasters for the world of sports. And that's not, I mean, this is beyond, there's an article on a billionaire giving some money, things like that. But these are do you recall the details of that story?
Yeah, I believe it's the effort is called Galvanize.
Yes.
And it was started by a broadcaster at Fox. And again, this is the type of story that when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. And I know, I mean, I don't really get anyone, I don't think I've ever gotten an email or any type of communication where someone's like, hey, that story doesn't belong in sports doing good. I've never, ever had that. And so, and again, I try to be more inclusive rather than exclusive regarding, the types of stories that I will include. And so, this really got me because it's something about, in terms of women and gender equity. There are issues, obviously, in that area when we're talking about from a participation standpoint. And thankfully, there's been some great progress with Title IX and a lot of effort being done by men and women in that area. But here, finding something that I think is somewhat entrepreneurial as well. Creating an organization, a network that can really have each person assist each other in their own development, in this area. And so, yeah, I'm blanking on the person's name from Fox, but this is someone. I think it's Laura Oakham.
Yeah.
And so, and I was taken with her. I was taken with her effort because she didn't have to do it. I mean, she was successful in the industry. And you could almost say, hey, I made it. But she looked at this and saying, what wasn't there for me? And what could I do to, make this, see more women, enter this field, and saying that, leaving it just to the marketplace, being completely hands off, maybe that's not the best way to do it. That there needs to be someone who sort of takes the lead on it. So that story really sort of captured my attention. I don't have any kids, but I have 2 nieces, and I would want them to feel comfortable going into any profession that's out there, whether it's sport or not sport related. And if they want to go into broadcasting, I would want them to have the opportunity, to succeed, right? And so being at least exposed to those types of things. So that was a story that I felt was definitely deserved to be in the newsletter. And again, the reason I do the newsletter is, this is it's a good, which is a great resource with respect to sort of good news across the board. But it's just to try to get even more attention for it. So, you see it at sports.good.is. But if you don't, hopefully you see it in the newsletter, and then that it gets you to maybe investigate it more, learn more about it, and pass it along. So again, a lot of that sort of word of mouth, trying to help with that.
Right, and I see this as it goes beyond, hey, isn't that great that's happening somewhere? This is an actual resource for somebody.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I like. And in fact, I'm just going to read the last on the short clip here that I'm looking at. It just talks about how I don't want to be considered good for a woman. I just want to be good.
Right.
And that's for anything with sports. Now, I just want to be good compared to the kids on my team, compared to this class or whatever it is, because life is like that. We just keep, how do you know how good you are at something unless you compare? Well, okay, sort of.
Yeah, right.
I mean, good is an absolute. I mean, yeah, you're good. And that's what I like about this. And that's why I encourage people to, again, say, great, another newsletter. This is different. It really is. And that, you can almost just spin your mouse and just see where it lands in there and read through it and say, oh, that's more interesting than I would have thought. Or, hey, I know somebody that likes to write, my friend's daughter or something like that. And hey, look, these things exist. And if there's one now, there's probably going to be more by next year. Right.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, much of what, whether it's again sport related or in business or in really any field, is just, a lot of it is about awareness. And it's not because people don't have, the interest, is that they just, like you said, people are really busy. And so it's something where they feel that they're so busy that they can't carve out some time. And again, to look at the newsletter, I have good friends who read it, and they don't read, from beginning to end all 10 stories. And I get it. I get newsletters, and I don't get to every single one. There are ones that I'll try to at least skim through and then say, I'm going to come back to that. But yeah, being someone who sort of digested newsletters, I thought, this is, maybe a way for me to get just more attention for these people who are and organizations that are being featured, but also the journalists who are, crafting these stories that, more people are reading what they're coming up with. Again, a lot of great stories that are common. I'll feature occasionally something from Sports Illustrated, and, again, it's always well written. So again, it's very much about helping others, or trying to, even in a small way, to sort of enhance what they're trying to do, because I do see positive value in what they're doing.
Yeah, and I had a guest several months ago, and the discussion went to the point where he said, well, here's what I tell my clients. I tell them, don't watch the news.
Okay.
And his point was that all it's going to do is distract you from, focusing on, good things that you can do. That was his whole point.
Right.
And I see that. There's just so much of it. You can only take so much of the news. However, I look at it and say, okay, that's my awareness. Okay, we could do better, or what would I do in that situation? But the beauty here, though, is you talk about these journalists. They're right. This is news, because you're right. Yeah. It seems like the only thing that's worth noting about is a fight in a locker room, a contract dispute, some misunderstanding between superstars across social media.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Something like that. Because that's great eye and ear candy. But this is the interesting stuff. Like I said, I didn't realize that LeBron, he's created a public school for at-risk children.
Right.
And not just that, but there's a film that's coming out. So when I see that tells me, hey, for teachers out there, coaches, what can you do with sports? What's the influence, or what part of LeBron do you want to be like? The one that is animated on the court?
Right.
Or this guy, the one that is doing this? And these are the resources here that you've got this information that people can just pull down and really put to good use. So in its simplest form, it's a great tool. So we talked a little bit about social responsibility and things like that. You mentioned everyone's busy. Your opinion, why are we too busy to take the time to almost enjoy seeing the ball get kicked around the field?
It's just part of it. I live in New York, and sometimes I think it's a New York thing or a New York City thing. But it's just kind of the evolution of society, that there's a lot out there, just in terms of quantity. Growing up in the 80s, and I actually have stopped doing this when I say to my students, when I was in high school and even college, there was no internet, and they'd look at me blankly, and I go, you know what, I'm going to stop doing that, because they can't even imagine,
right.
Forget no internet, forget about, that I didn't carry a mobile phone with me. So that, again, there is a lot out there. I think about, and sort of my own situation. Yes, I'm busy, but if I think about where maybe some time, and I'm not looking to book myself 24/7, but I see there's situations like, if I could read that article, or, spend an hour and, find these articles, or, pass it on or whatever, I think we have more time than we want to sort of admit. So I do think part of it is, and there are a lot of people who consult on productivity and staying focused and have these, lessons on how to be better at that. So I do think legitimately, people are busy, but for if you let them know that this type of stuff exists, they will fit it in. So people, if they know there's a good story or good stories, they will read those and not only the bad stories. So I think people will regulate themselves, and I think the more good there is, the more they'll sort of seek it out. So definitely, so understanding, people with in terms of schedule, we do try to, again, because there's so much access now to things, especially via technology, that it's almost like we should be, doing, more. And one thing I don't do that I just really admire folks is who are able to sort of crack open a book and just read for half an hour, an hour. And I was like, boy, I'm jealous of that, because I've gotten away from sort of, slowing things down and trying to sort of take in some, quality time for myself or with others. So it's a challenge, but, one of the challenge coming from, because there's so much, there can be so much that can be positive as well. So I don't think we're being pushed out. I think positivity in sport, outside of sport, I think it's starting to make itself known.
Oh, it definitely is. And I'll let you know that yes, New York's a busy place. I was just up there weekend before last. We, a couple of the girls and I, we went to, my wife, we just checked out the lights. It is one big busy place. And
right.
I'm from Chicago originally.
Yeah.
And I still am shocked at how big New York is. But I'll tell you this, some of the busiest times I've had in my life was in suburban Atlanta. So,
okay, right.
So, that's when my kids I had all four of them going, two stuck in car seats, the other two trying to get to their practices at, rush hour back and forth and things like that. So it's a matter of realizing when you stop doing some things, the world doesn't fall apart. Your kids don't hate you.
Right.
Your neighbors don't look down on you. And this is the stuff that's worth looking at, really. If you're going to start just crawling through on your phone, checking things out, these are the good stories.
Right.
I wish there was a feed on my phone, because I look at the news feed and I see, I'll just check and see what's going on. I'll see 4 headlines between trending and big news, and it's between informative and ridiculous.
Okay.
When you see what the headlines are, and
right.
I'll open them and I'll scan through, say, okay, I'm up to speed on what's going on, but I'm not going to get sucked into it. But I just had to turn off right now my web browser, because I was looking at your newsletter too much while we're talking here, because it was drawing me into the next story. So
right.
I hope there's more people doing it. Do you know of any other? I know we all know there's blogs out there, but in your networking, and again, you've mentioned the other groups that you are posting their links. Who are some other people and some other things that are going on that dovetail with what you're doing, or what do you see that might be, what goes beyond a good blog like this to where do you think things are going? Because you're right, the awareness is there. There are so many more people that are willing to actually do something good, here. Right. For their daily job.
There's definitely, and it's been a huge sort of takeaway for me, such a great takeaway for me, is that getting to become more aware of sort of resources that are out there. So, for example, I mentioned Good Magazine. So again, it's good.is is their website. Dick's Sporting Goods, which is, big player in the, obviously in the retail sector, but also in terms of sport and development, with their great campaign about getting more kids to play sport, is one of their main sponsors. And, again, it's not sports exclusive, but I always see really good stories there. That's where the galvanized article came from, was from Good. So I see that there's a woman who started a sort of, I call it it's really a media company, more than 15 years ago. It's called the Good News Network. And, it is what it sounds like. And not sports focused, but I love getting her stuff. Sometimes I do get it daily. She has a blog as well. In the sport specific area, again, Beyond Sport, Up to Us Sports, Laureus, a great organization that does a lot of good work, and sort of has their Laureus Awards as well, Laureus Ambassadors. So I see them. the National Association